birthright citizenship, and why is it being debated at the Supreme Court? Tyrone Bowman Live. I found an article, and that's the title of it, written in The Guardian, and I want to talk about it for a few moments. Birthright citizenship and the debate that's ongoing before the Supreme Court. According to The Guardian, as part of a sweeping crackdown on both undocumented and legal immigrants, Donald Trump signed an executive order on Inauguration Day that tries to end for some the right to U.S. citizenship for children born in the United States. The order was blocked as, quote, blatantly unconstitutional, end quote, in one judge's opinion. After immediate legal challenges, appeals failed, and 4 months later, the issue has made its way to the increasingly divided Supreme Court as an emergency case. The administration is pressing it to allow Trump's restrictions to partially take effect, withholding citizenship for children born in the U.S. without at least one parent being a legal permanent resident or green card holder or U.S. citizen. In a country where birthright citizenship, regardless of lineage, is a deeply held value, if the president succeeds in cutting off that right for future generations, could create a permanent underclass through policy changes that would specifically target communities of color. That said, the crux of the administration's argument before the court during the oral session on 15th of May actually focuses less on the principle of birthright citizenship and more on trying to curtail the power of lower court judges so that any injunctions are applied narrowly, not across the whole nation. If successful, that would further Trump's agenda on immigration and a bevy of other issues, while birthright citizenship itself continues to be litigated. So here's what you need to know. What is birthright citizenship? When Trump and his allies reference birthright citizenship, they are usually alluding to the legal principle of jus soli, which means, quote, right of the soil. Understand, jus soli, which means, quote, right of the soil in Latin. Put simply, it allows nearly everyone born on U.S. soil to become a U.S. citizen. And what is the basis for birthright citizenship in the U.S.? As a concept, jus soil comes from the English common law, which held centuries ago that people born in England were natural subjects. But unrestricted birthright citizenship in the U.S., that includes people of color, not just white Americans, derives from the U.S. Constitution. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled that black descendants of enslaved people could not become U.S. citizens. To right this injustice, just over a decade later, the U.S. ratified the 14th Amendment. The first line of the 14th Amendment reads, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, end quote. Known as the Citizenship Clause, this phrase, alongside a number of related statutes and regulations, establishes the modern basis for birthright citizenship. What have U.S. courts historically said about the issue concerning birthright citizenship for the children of immigrants? Even as the 14th Amendment was ratified, Americans were starting to turn against immigrants in the U.S., especially Chinese workers. Soon, Congress had enacted legislation to heavily restrict further Chinese migration and make life difficult for those already statewide. Wong Kim Ark, a young man born in San Francisco to immigrant parents, went to China to see his family. When he tried to return home to the U.S., he wasn't allowed into the country based on the allegation that he wasn't a U.S. citizen. But the Supreme Court saw the situation differently. in an 1898 presidential decision that has withstood the test of time, the justices ruled in favor of Wang Kim Ark's U.S. citizenship claim, even though his parents were Chinese immigrants unable to naturalize. And the question is, who is not a citizen even if they are born in the U.S.? That's a good question. There are exceedingly rare exceptions to the principle of jus soli, where people born in the U.S. are not automatically granted U.S. citizenship. Until the enactment of a law in 1924, indigenous peoples born in the U.S. were excluded. In 2021, the Supreme Court decided that people born in American Samoa's unincorporated territories are not automatically guaranteed birthright citizenship unless Congress enacts legislation. And the children of foreign diplomats, or in a more violent scenario, the kids of enemy occupiers also lack a right to U.S. citizenship by birth. So as you can see, this is a hot topic. It's a contentious topic. It's debatable because it's going to get even more debatable. Do other countries have birthright citizenship like in the U.S.? In comments criticizing the U.S.'s version of birthright citizenship, Trump has said, quote, "We have to end it. We're the only country that has it," close quote. Well, what about the fact that people now coming from South Africa who were not born in America, and they are going to be given a pathway to become citizens of this country? Think about that. They're going to be given a pathway where only white people can become citizens of this country. I know some of y'all don't like this talk, but a fact is a fact. It is what it is. Unless you are on the other side of discrimination, you're heartless when it comes to the issue of it. Those who never suffered apartheid in South Africa don't even know what apartheid is, and they don't understand how damnable it was to the native Africans in their own land. In fact, dozens of countries have a right to citizenship based on place of birth, like the U.S. Most of these countries are within the Western Hemisphere, rather, including Canada and Mexico. That said, nowadays, birthright citizenship is less common in other regions of the world. See, what people don't know is if America continues to go down this path, other nations are going to do the same thing and throw Americans out of their countries, exile them. They're going to take children that were born in their country and send them out, deport them as well. So this is a two-edged sword. It's not just going to be one-sided, the way people think. What does Trump's executive order do? The executive order signed in January tries to make it so that children born in the U.S. but without at least one parent who is a lawful permanent resident or U.S. citizen are no longer automatically extended U.S. citizenship. It also disallows federal agencies from issuing or recognizing documentation proving U.S. citizenship for such children. Notably, the executive order targets kids born to both unauthorized immigrants and people legally in the U.S. on temporary visas. So could President Trump actually end birthright citizenship? Maybe, although probably not, and almost definitely not through executive order. The Citizenship Clause is part of the U.S. Constitution. The nation's founding document generally, legal scholars strongly suggest that neither executive action nor legislation should be able to supersede the Constitution's guarantee of birthright citizenship for those born on U.S. soil. And if I sound like a lawyer to you all, it's because I'm a law student working on getting that law degree for a variety of reasons that I won't say here. According to the Harvard law professor Gerald Newman, quote, "The president has no authority to change the citizenship rule at all. Congress can change the rule, but only to the extent of making it broader. Neither Congress nor the president can reduce it below the constitutional minimum, close quote. However, because the legal precedent set by Wang well over a century ago is so fundamental to how birthright citizenship relates to the children of immigrants, the current court battles erupting from Trump's executive order could, in most extreme scenario, jeopardize the U.S.'s understanding of birthright citizenship as we know it. Can't be one-sided. You can't want it for some people and don't want it for others. In fact, forcing the Supreme Court to reinterpret the 14th Amendment is probably part of the long game that the Trump administration is playing with its executive order. Although we are not there yet, and even with the White House raring for a fight, a complete overhaul of case law around birthright citizenship remains improbable. Y'all subscribe to this channel because you will get good, solid information over here. This is a very serious channel, and it's out to help people and inform people. The other way to override an existing part of the Constitution would be to ratify another amendment, which would require a level of political support that is unlikely for such a fringe right-wing issue. Why is the Supreme Court involved at this point in time? The justices are hearing. Let me take a quick break. I'll be right back. What's the problem? I'm here. It's a good thing I'm here. Thank you, everybody, for being patient. Tyrone Bowman Live. I'm talking about birthright citizenship here tonight. And I think I left off asking the question, why is the Supreme Court at this juncture being involved in birthright citizenship? Because it's a contentious issue, because they're trying to end it. And if they can end it on one aspect, believe me, they're going to try to end it on every aspect. You got to look at the hidden motive behind what people do, why they do it. Don't look at President Trump. Look at the people behind the scenes who are actually running the nation. He's the face. But those who are behind him are making decisions regarding people's lives. And I'm just going to be bold enough and say it. They want America to be an all-white Anglo-Saxon nation. Take all the contributions, all the wealth, everything that everybody contributed to this country. Just disregard it. Wake up. Y'all thought this election was a joke, didn't y'all? Y'all thought y'all took Kamala Harris for a joke. People really thought she didn't know what she was talking about. And now they're lamenting. Too little, too late. But there are things that can be done. All right. So the next question is, what if the Supreme Court decides to agree with President Trump? Depending on what the majority opinion eventually says, the Supreme Court could be flirting with disaster for families across the nation, and they're not going to get a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court. If, for example, the justices limit the current injunctions against Trump's executive order to only apply to people and entities involved in the lawsuits challenging the policy, that could create significant logistical issues. Babies born to immigrants at the same hospital may have different citizenship status, depending on whether their parents had the ability to engage an attorney and participate in litigation. A newborn in New Jersey could derive birthright citizenship while one in Mississippi didn't. And be careful what type of lawyer you get, because a lot of them are shysters. Don't just go out here and get somebody because they say they're an immigration lawyer and they're going to charge you a lot of money and they're plotting against you all the time. And the ensuing turmoil could render birth certificates essentially useless for proving U.S. citizenship, even for children born to Americans. So how else could the Trump administration police birthright citizenship? Even if the administration is unable to completely undo birthright citizenship for the children of certain immigrants, officials have reportedly been exploring other ways to tackle the topic. For instance, they could try to restrict short-term visas for pregnant travelers so those travelers couldn't give birth in the U.S. This is a hot button topic and a hot button issue. Thank you all for being patient while I was going through this article. Thank you all for watching, and please consider subscribing to Tyrone Bowman Live. Never surrender, never quit.